Welcome back, everyone. Mike McConville here one more time for StringTech, Stratford, Ontario, Canada. We have kind of an interesting project here, and the customer has ordered these Lucky Dog parts. I'm sure you're familiar with Lucky Dog. He's like Mr. Tele. This is the Lucky Dog bridge. He's got his own casting and distressed metal look. The plate as well as Lucky Dog, as you can see. It's interesting how the switch is kind of mounted on a slight cant. So these Romain pickups are made by a fella in London, Ontario, and Matt bought those and has them installed already. So this is an Asher pick guard. You can see that he sort of put all these parts together on this Squire Tele, kind of make it his own. We're going to swap out the Clouson tuners with these Lucky Dog tuners. So you can see that it kind of freely drops into the top of that hole because it is a reamed hole, it's not a drilled hole. And we get just enough pressure on that fluting to hold that cuff down tight. Now that we've determined the proper depth with our piece of masking tape there, we can go ahead and ream out those other 4 holes. I like to have the headstock kind of in the center of my chest when I'm doing this. These are the replacement tuners. The spacing on the Squire center to center is just a little too small, but it will work. Yeah, it's pretty well 90 thou. So the diameter of the bit is essentially 75 thou. The threads have 15 thou of grip in the maple. I keep a block of paraffin wax handy and just kind of jam it into those threads. That's what we need. So lots of grip. So it's the third one that's given us a little bit of grief. So we're going to just make a slight relief cut. Well, you know something, I know it's going to get progressively worse here, so we'll just keep on going. Okay, now that's perfectly aligned. Okay. Yeah, that's looking good. Happy with that. So I'm loosening the straps off so it allows me to kind of flip the guitar around. There we go. So we're going to have to heat that up and score that thick finish on the headstock side of the nut and gently ease that out of there. It's a really thick finish on this one.
It is.
Outside in. Pushing that in this side. Otherwise you'll chip the finish on the other side.
That's about as clean as it gets. These can be real trouble, these real thick skinned finishes. I will kind of rub that leading edge with some dark compound once we get closer to fitting the new nut. So we got to determine the thickness first of all. Now, this is why these blanks are made oversized, so you can literally do any guitar on the planet with the one blank.
Okay, so now that I put the straight edge here, I can feel, and you can hear that one fret is really high. So it's high all the way across. Okay, and here's the next one. This one's a little trickier because you can't necessarily hear it teetering back and forth, but you can see that it actually will pivot on that one fret. Good. And this is the next one. You can also feel that teeter.
Now that we kind of know where those high spots are, we're going to loosen the strings off and we're going to check those exact same high spots again. Let's see how the neck reacts. We may need to adjust the truss rod to duplicate those exact results once the string tension is removed.
So we haven't adjusted the truss rod yet. We've alleviated the string tension and we're just checking to see if that's still there. And it is. Here's the next spot. And sure enough, it's still ticking. Okay, so the next spot, still ticking there. This is the final spot and it's still ticking. I noticed in the middle of the neck here that there is actually a little bit more ticking in there, which wasn't there before. So I think we are going to have to adjust the truss rod. As Mike is adjusting the truss rod there, the ticking is slowly disappearing.
Now, as you have seen me do in so many other videos, I'm starting with 320 grit and getting rid of the tooling marks of the file. Just sort of concentrating quickly on getting rid of those scratch marks of the mill file. I'm following up with 400 grit. Now I'm going full length with 600 grit, a few passes. The second piece of 600 grit. And a third piece of 600 grit for good measure. And you can hear audibly how the abrasive gets quieter and quieter as we go to the finer grits. And this is our 800 grit. Now I've stacked a couple of pieces on my scrub block. These are the scrub blocks that I send out in the fretting kit. So I just wrap that paper around the block, and there's my second piece. So 800 grit now. Okay, I've got some steel wool here. I'm just going to steel wool these frets just to get a closer look at the overall condition. Make sure that we got all those marks out. And we most certainly do. Now I've got some emery cloth. Again, 2 pieces stacked up on the scrub block. And my second piece So what I have here is a canvas strop on the die grinder, and I have controlled the speed by drilling and tapping the handle, and I know that I'm only going to get X amount of torque when I push that down. You have to remember that a die grinder can turn up to 30,000 RPM. So you don't want maximum torque. You want to adjust the die grinder so that if I turn that on and I push down, it'll stop. So it's not infinite torque. It's sort of like you're polishing a floor. So Matt was just asking, you know, what was that red stuff? Well, that red stuff is called Jeweler's Rouge, and it's a compound that you load onto the wheel to give you just enough traction to polish the frets. So we are close to completion here. What I'm doing now is I've got 4-0 steel wool. 2 things I'm doing, kind of polishing the frets with it, and I'm also cleaning up any residue from that compound that I just mentioned. And this is just a touch of lemon oil. Again, just wiping up the last little bit of the residue. I usually work up to the 12th fret and then flip the cloth and dry it off. You just wipe it on, wipe it off. You know, this gives me a much better than factory finish. Now there are many variations on a theme as far as locating the best place for your string trees. I'm letting that string tree kind of float equidistance between the strings. It came with one string retainer that wasn't even really centered between strings. It just wasn't working. So Matt decided to go with 2 rollers. They're nice because the break angle to the rollers is very shallow, just the right height to pull that string down a little bit so it doesn't rattle in the slot. You do all the bending you want. This thing does not go out of tune. So that's our compensated nut for 9-46 at concert pitch. This is the wrap up on this parts caster. We've got a Squire body and a Squire neck. This has the Romain pickups that are made in London, Ontario, and I am in love with these. Beautiful balance between pickups, super clean, and just great sound. This is the Lucky Dog sort of custom casting bridge with the brass saddles. Now they did need to be touched up for this 9 to 46 strings. I find most of these saddles, whether they're Callahan or Joe Barden, they tend to be machined for 10 to 46 strings of concert pitch. So this is 9 to 46, so I did have to do a bit of touch up to get these saddles to line up perfectly. This is that cool Lucky Dog plate with a three-way selector switch on a slant like that. It's actually, you know, just a subtle little touch that makes a lot of sense when you're playing the guitar. It's just more ergonomic to have that on a little bit of an angle. So bravo, Lucky Dog. And the pick guard is also a custom pick guard, and we've got that bound Squire body. These are the Lucky Dog tuners that you saw earlier in the video. Gave us quite a bit of grief, you know, to get these things to fit. They do fit, no blame to Lucky Dog or to Squire. They were just different center-to-center spacings. It's working 100% now, and that's really all that counts, isn't it? There's our 3-tone burst on the back. And of course, this is a 50s style neck, so there's no stripe up the back. Neck, just solid maple. And this wraps it up for this Parts Caster Tele. And this is the loop.